Welcome to Learn Commerce PU online classes. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
Hello students, welcome to 2nd PUC English online class. In today's class, let us read and discuss the 11th lesson, that is Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye by George Mikesh. So dear students, this is a travelogue by George Mikesh. Dear students, how do you feel going for or do you like traveling? Do you like going to alien place or to the countries? Do you like traveling? Of course, everyone likes traveling, right? Everybody has the dream that we have to visit the different places, we have to learn about different people, culture, etc. If we cannot, what to do? We have to read at least somebody's experience, those who have gone for traveling and to the different places, right? So here is such kind of experience, that is travelogue by George Mikesh, Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eyes. When we go to the alien places or when we go to the different countries or different places than our native place, how do we feel? We find the different cultures, different languages, different behaviors, different attitudes, different lifestyles, etc. right? We feel it, sometimes we feel it strange, and sometimes we feel that such kind of cultures or manners or lifestyles even we require, then our life will be good, our society will be good, like this we are feeling. So, and sometimes we feel that than them our culture is better and our lifestyle is better. So, there are some there are different opinions, and when we read the travelogue, we cannot come to the conclusion that what their views they express, that is true. Everyone will experience or everyone will take it in a different way, right? So, there are this is travelogues are always, they are the individual experiences, not the general experiences. So, when we read the different travelogues, then we will come to know the similarities or the differences between the culture and the differences between the one person's view and the other person's view. Here George Mikesh, he is traveling to Brazil and Japan, and here in this lesson he speaks about Japan's culture and Brazil's traffic. So here, what is this travelogue? Let us see in detail. Here is a small information, let me read that. Note on travel writing. Look at here. Travel writing is about writing one's experience of traveling and visiting alien places. As a genre of writing, it is as old as the 2nd century, when travelers to Greece recorded their experiences in the form of a diary. Whatever they experienced while they are traveling, they recorded it in a diary. They might have met some people, they might have seen their practices, they might have seen their lifestyle. So, all this recorded in the form of a diary, and later this form of writing it took a royal patronage and it became a source of history. With the invention of new technique of navigation and sea voyages during 9th and 10th centuries, travel writing became popular as more number of people began to explore new places on the globe. Soon such trips started getting royal patronage and support. New adventures and voyages were even commissioned. Thus, travel writing ceased to be just a description of a new place born out of curiosity and gained political overtones. Many are curious to visit the new places. In Kannada journals, you can see in Sudha and other journals also, sometimes we can see these travel experiences. Along with the pictures, they write their travel experiences, and when we read it, at least we get some knowledge about that place. Though we cannot go to that place, we can learn, or we can come to know, we can know about such practices or such manners or cultures which are practiced in the earth or in this world. New adventures and voyages were even commissioned. Thus, travel writing ceased to be just a description of new place born out of curiosity and gained political overtones. Now, even after much of the earth has been explored and almost every piece on this earth has been written about, its popularity has not waned, as can be seen by the immense viewership it has on modern media like TV and internet. Though there are TV and internet, this travelogue, it did not lose its popularity. And travel writing has become under serious scholarly study in the past 50 years and has become a part of culture studies program in many universities. Travel writing is no longer viewed as a product of some innocent curiosity or an attempt to understand an alien culture objectively. Rather, these narratives are telling comments on how a culture gets represented by another, and in the process certainly uphold some cultural values as somehow superior and universal than the others. So, not only it is out of curiosity, but it also how it is represented by another, that also we can see. So, we feel that our culture is good, but in the onlookers or in the views of others, how it looks we do not know, and then we come to know with these kind of writing. So, let us see what he says about Japanese manners. A quarter of an hour in Japan will convince you that you are among exquisitely well mannered people. People who live on a hopelessly overcrowded island have to respect one another's privacy, or rather would have to if they had any privacy. But they do not. So, courtesy has a double function. It is courtesy and it is substitute privacy. Take for example, the little red telephones in the streets, shops, halls or of hotels. The instrument is situated on a table or on a counter. They have no space or to spare. They have no space to spare for booths. You conduct your most confidential business transactions, your intimate love quarrels in public, yet in perfect privacy. Anybody, any passerby could listen it, but nobody does. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. So, in the first paragraph, George Mikesh, he speaks about Japanese culture. Quarter of an hour is enough in Japan. You feel that you are exquisitely among the well-mannered people. Why? Why? Because you can observe a courtesy or the common sense of the people of Japan. What do they do? Japan is a overcrowded land. It's an island. There are many people. They do not have the space for public or for the privacy. They do not have the space for privacy. Where do you want privacy? Especially phone booths, right? You want a privacy because whatever you want to discuss or you want to speak, you do not like to be heard by someone else. So, you need privacy, but that privacy cannot be given in Japan because it is an overcrowded land and you cannot find a private place for your sake. So, here what happened? This is understood and realized by the people of Japan, and they respect each other's privacy. And here privacy that has the that has practiced by everyone, and the courtesy of the Japanese people, that manner, that culture of Japanese people, that acts a double role, that courtesy of Japanese that acts double role, or it is the substitute for privacy. Courtesy is the substitute for privacy, it is said. People who live on a hopelessly overcrowded island have to respect one another's privacy, or rather would have if they had any privacy, but they do not have the privacy. So, courtesy has a double function here. Since they do not have privacy, the courtesy itself has double function and it acts as privacy too. And how? One example he is giving here, that is the telephone booths, the red telephone booths. They are located on the tables of the hotel and of the shops and in the streets also. While walking or by passing by, you can hear one another's conversation. But here you can do a perfect private conversation in the public place. Why? Because nobody bothered about others. Nobody used to hear, nobody used to listen to others' conversation. This is called the courtesy, and this is called the substitute for privacy. This is the well manner that is practiced by whom? By Japanese. And the writer, the author, he is very proud of Japanese because of their manners, that is respecting others' privacy. Any passerby could listen in, but nobody does. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. Next, he speaks about another culture or the manner of or the practice of Japanese, that is bowing. What he says about bowing, let us see. You will of course immediately notice their mania for bowing. Everybody keeps bowing to everybody else with the ceremonious solemnity of a courtier, yet with a greater deal of natural and intimate grace. Bowing is neither less nor more is silly than shaking hands or kissing the cheek, but it is quainter, more formal, more oriental. It is also infectious. After a few hours, you start bowing yourself, but you bow too deeply or not deeply enough. You bow to wrong man at the wrong time. You do not clasp your hands in front of you, which is bad, or you do, which is worse. You will discover that Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing. Who bows to whom, how deeply, and for how long. So, this is about the Japanese culture, that is bowing. When you go to Japan, immediately you can find a culture that is bowing, and it looks like mania. Everybody will bow to one another, but you won't find it. How? You will be confused, and everyone will bow. Those who come, those who go, when they meet each other, they bow. And the writer calls it as mania, and also he calls it as infectious, because everyone will do that, and everybody keeps bowing everybody else with a ceremonious solemnity. What is this ceremonious solemnity? Extremely formal ways. How? In India, when we meet our guest or anyone else, how do we fold our hands? We join our hands and we wish. The same way here the bowing is. And in some other cultures, they shake hands or they hug and they kiss, right? So, in Western cultures and all. But in Japan, what do? They bow to each other, and while bowing also, they have to follow some of the rules. They are untold rules. They bow and the structure, the gestures, etc. These are practiced by everyone, and Japanese know it well. Though the alien or though the strangers may not knowing about it, but Japanese, they know it well. They know it well, and it is quainter in the sense it's attractive, more formal, it's not unusual ways, more oriental. It is connected with the eastern part of the world too, it's oriental. It is also infectious. It's also infection. Infection spreads from one to another. After few hours you start bowing yourself, but you bow deeply too or not deeply enough. You bow to wrong man at the wrong time. You do not clasp your hands in front of you, which is bad or which is worse. You will discover that Japanese have complicated hierarchy in bowing. So how to bow, where to bow, whom to bow, it will be complicated, but Japanese know it well. And while bowing also, they are practicing some hierarchy. What are those hierarchies? Let us look in the next class. Thank you for watching.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.